What's happening?
I love that intro.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I know we're kind of in the mix of updating everything, so we'll get a little bit of an overhaul with it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So what's good? How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited to be here. So
Yes.
yeah.
So cool. So I want to jump in a little bit. I mean, navigating uncertain times, right? As it's pretty weird timing, time of things right now. Here we are, first quarter of 25, and a lot of interesting things happening in your neck of the woods, north of the border, and just everything that's going on. And I was talking with Greg earlier this morning, and they put 6 deals under contract in the last 24 hours. So I was like, okay, tell me more. Like, kind of the perception looking in, and obviously conversations with you, conversations with Brandon, and all of our other Canadian friends and clients, and it's just seeing what's we see through the media or outlets that you kind of trust, and it's just like, what the heck is going on? And then Greg saying, hey dude, we put 6 deals under contract in the last 24 hours. I'm like, okay, all right, homes are still selling. So being able to continue to navigate those waters. I mean, what has it been like, kind of coming in, seasonality and coming into the first part of the year?
Yeah. Well, for me, it feels like we're going back to the market well before pandemic, seeing more days on market, homes obviously not selling as fast as possible, and just not as much inventory getting moved as quick as we like to see. But we're in the spring market, so if we're going to see any movement, like Greg's seeing that movement there in KW and in Guelph there, that seems pretty typical for the time of year that we're in. But I will not lie, in my area, I think the sales have been down crazy. And it's just price point, and people are getting really scared of the tariffs. Like, as much as I want to believe it won't make a big difference, we've had a lot of buyers pull back because they're maybe working for a company that is manufacturing and they get their products from the States. And they're worried about what their cost is going to be at the end of the day for their consumer, and if they're going to be down next year, and what that means for them in the buying process, because our prices are still so saturated. So it's still a crazy hoop to think about getting yourself into.
Yeah. What, I know what I always tell people, kind of, introduction to you and everything. I mean, you're just a world-class storyteller, and, just layer that into kind of all of the marketing and all the things that you do. And I look back, and we were working on some things, and I threw some re-engagement strategies into ChatGPT. Very first thing ChatGPT even spit out is, tell this in the form of a story. And so how are you navigating and telling the story when people's perception and their belief in the marketplace has maybe caused them either they're not able to make a decision, or they're just basically paralyzed through fear? Like, how are you telling that story to be able to navigate, be like, listen, if you have to sell, homes are still selling, there's still buyers out there, transactions will still happen, but how are you weaving that into the conversation? How are you weaving that into marketing?
Well, the conversation, I mean, for one-on-one with the clients, the storytelling unfolds even when you're on camera or not. This is the real estate market. It goes up and down, and you just go back into the history and the story of the real estate market. You're never going to sell in the high. You're never going to sell in the low. And depending on the position that you're in and what their end goal is, that's how you navigate your clients. And I would doesn't matter what market we're in, there's always going to be a majority of people that need to buy, that need to sell. Unfortunately, usually the people that need to sell are the ones that it's divorce, it's a separation. There's death in the family, there's inheritance. One thing I want to say about that, there's so many millions of dollars of inheritance money still coming down. I mean, even with the path, like the boomer generation, my lawyers that are calling me and passing me deals keep reminding me of this and getting me excited about that coming into the market, making it a lot easier for people to jump into homes. But the story with, I'll tell you a great example would be this morning. I used the advantage of the fact that there is so much inventory coming to market as the intro to my video. I said, I looked at the camera and I said, I see you scrolling realtor.ca. So for you, realtor.com every single day. And you're probably noticing the large amount of inventory hitting the market right now. But there's one thing that you will notice, and this type of property is not a dime a dozen. It's a 3-acre horse farm, and you'll never scroll past too many of those. So I just tried to use what's happening with all the inventory that's happening. There is still rarity in the market for what you're maybe looking for.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be that piece of property that comes up. There's always going to be that special buy that anybody will make a move for, because only certain amount of properties like that come up a year, or maybe in that street or that neighborhood that you die to be in. You know, you're going to wait till that property comes up. So properties are moving and selling, and the stories with the marketing that I try to play on current times. But again, I always try to stick to the root of what makes that property stand out among the rest. And there is a lot right now to make it stand out against. So you got to get really crafty with it.
Yeah. And I mean, you said, I think, a very valid point there at the beginning, and, you know, there's still a windfall of money through certain channels, through certain avenues, be it inheritance, you know, divorce. There's situations, right, that really trigger the moving process. And you talked about the importance of key relationships. And Leanne and I were talking about this yesterday, and she's got a really great relationship with an attorney who was starting to make introductions. And it's like, that's like introductions to where there's a lot of money and needs to be on point to have those conversations. So it was just a really good reminder that no matter what's happening in the market, there's always the opportunity. You just got to be able to, you know, open up the blinders, don't put the blinders on, don't sit back on the sidelines, but really lean in and find, you know, the relationships that can make the connections for you to where those opportunities are.
Yeah, I got to nurture those relationships. And, you know, I mean, it took me so many years to nurture this one with this lawyer of doing, I don't know how many free letter of opinions I have done, but I've sent out a lot of ships, but they're all coming back. And he puts a lot of deals in front of me that I probably wouldn't usually do, but I'm finding myself taking on these challenges and being a little bit more flexible with kind of what I'm taking on. For example, would be co-listing a nursery, a garden nursery. They want my marketing, but I'm not a commercial expert. But to, you know, bring two people together in on that, big investment portfolios. You know, I don't usually take those on. It's a lot of numbers, but pulling in some people in my EXP downline that are working with me or any partnered with me that, you know, let's do this together. And I'm finding myself, you know, being more versatile, even though I don't want all the piece of the pie. I want a little bit of the experience, but I know I bring to the table what that client might be missing. And there's just so many opportunities right now with properties that have not sold to bring your expertise in there. And that's when, if you do really big on marketing, like storytelling or anything that you do that makes your brand stand out, you're almost the only choice for them to call at this point. And we're getting a lot of those calls, and that be it. It's not always the best situation. They've been on the market for a long time. Their motivation's down. A lot of those factors come in, but they also help you position them the way they should have probably been in the beginning. And I love being the second and third agent on properties. It's just sometimes the time they needed me and the time we align, we get more than what they even expected in the beginning when they first listed. So it's a beautiful thing sometimes.
Yeah. And I think they maybe have gotten through their own ego a little bit to where they're really open to, okay, we're ready to listen. Like, what do we truly need to do? And I think it's interesting to see and hear conversations, especially with individuals that may have a little bit more wealth, a little bit more, you know, in the way that they really look at real estate agents. I've had, you know, a couple conversations just in the last week around still that perception of real estate agents that, you know, all they do is, and that's been their experience, right? They've only dealt with agents that have just put a sign in the yard and just let it syndicate through the MLS, and they just kind of sit back and wait. And they're like, no, I mean, we need an aggressive agent that knows how to market, that can get the maximum amount of eyeballs to this property. And I mean, as you start to see kind of the season of real estate, are those agents going to survive that are just kind of sitting back?
You know what? It's funny you brought this up. It's, as challenging as this market can be for some that aren't used to having, lower ends, like lower sales at this late in the season already. It does separate, what does that say? The dogs from the pack, or
Yeah.
so I guess it's the wrong way, the men from the boys. That's not probably the right way to say
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
we had so many agents come in during the pandemic, and they just have never experienced even having the conversation sometimes of having a price reduction, setting expectations, having these long listing periods, and being able to manage emotions. I mean, that is such a strong tool. I literally just had 3 conversations this morning of managing expectations and emotions to keep my clients at bay, especially in a market right now where a lot of people are in a really tough situation. And if you're not getting those sales coming in, at the end of the day, like, this costs so much to be a strong listing agent and the marketing. And if you can't provide that, then you're gonna be a really strong buying agent. And if you don't have the means to make it for the next 3 months, the pressure, I know I felt the pressure to get those deals done. You got to get a desperate smell around you. And some people, they take that and they dive in and they do the deals that they wouldn't have done, or had those calls that they wouldn't have actually made, or totally changed their routine to create an entirely different business. Or there's the ones that, maybe don't advise the best way they possibly should have, maybe priced the property too low, and maybe did those quick deals, which we all know those quick deals always end up with more problems in the end sometimes.
They do. And like you said, you end up saying yes to things that just absolutely consume you, right? Consume your time. And it's just almost an unrealistic, situation. And it's really the opportunity cost, right? Because of the time invested that it doesn't even end up going anywhere. And, it's funny how, we'll just kind of talk ourselves into, okay, this is going to make sense. Maybe I can get other deals from it. I can do, but it's like,
yeah,
what are you really missing out on by saying yes to that? And really knowing what is a real opportunity in today's market, and just not getting caught up, and better off being, like you said, second or third agent, because go let all these other agents that are desperate, that are saying yes to these people that are not able to get them the results because they don't know how to negotiate. They don't know how to manage expectations. They don't know how to market. They don't know how to sell. They don't know how to do really anything other than take orders and just kind of check the boxes. And so you're right. You're better off being the second or third agent coming in, and when they're absolutely ready, to be realistic with what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, we're going through, I'm feeling that with some of my agents on my team, they've said yes to some buyers that are just, dragging them through the mud, and they're just hanging on to these, well, maybe other opportunities are hanging that are so much better. And, you need to realign and let go. Sometimes you're so far into something, it's like, I can't let this person go. I've already invested too much time. And it's sometimes like when you take a listing on and you price it because maybe, just maybe they might get it. And then they say they'll do a price drop, and then you'll have that plan built out, and it just doesn't go to plan, and all that time and energy out the window.
Yeah.
You almost learn the hard way with those, honestly.
It does. And it also does something to your confidence, and you really start to feel that as you try to recover and bounce back from it. And it's the whole thing, right? Like, if you stop working out for a month, it doesn't take a month to get back to where you were, right? It takes twice the effort. It takes 2 months. So it's the same thing with your business. And especially if you let it kind of stall out with these agents that have been in that situation. If you have a conversation with them, what advice are you giving them? What do you tell them that, these agents that are struggling, that are out there, that you said got licensed since 20, they haven't had to experience any market conditions like this. When they come to you or you have those conversations, what are you conveying? What are you telling them?
Well, it's hard to say, honestly. Like, it's such a different, like, that question for me, like, is it for a listing or for buyers? They're so different breeds right now, because listing right now, there's no formula for it. It's changing every week right now, especially when we're going into the spring market. We're starting to see offer dates starting to pop up again, and different strategies popping up. And you can really put your sellers in a really bad situation if you're not navigating that to the best of your ability. Or, I mean, So when I'm giving advice to my agents that are asking for it, when the listing side of things, you got to be so savvy and strategic with your listing price. Right now, your listing price determines if you're going to sell or not. And if it is a touch high, you have to have that open, honest conversation about doing a price drop within a week or 2 weeks, depending on the feedback and the traffic. I literally just did this morning, listed a property. We were just a touch high, but the only reason we did that was because we have a super long closing day. So we have a long playing field here that we can work with time. Other than that, I would never have tried that. They came to their own realization before I even called it. Within 1 week, we have it down to the price where I wanted it to be to begin with. But that was all put into the pre-talks before I even committed to taking this on at that price point. Sorry, I have it on Do Not Disturb. And then with the buyers, we just had a lot of lessons this week of our pre-qualification process. They got to the offer point, and the client they were working with didn't have a big down payment. And we were wondering, where did that come? Where did we miss that you've been working with them for so long? But because they had bought and sold before, that wasn't asked. Because they said they were working with the mortgage broker, that didn't come up. And it's like, okay, now we need to really sharpen our skills on the pre-qualifications, not only on the sell side, but it's just especially on who you commit with when you're buying, and creating a much stronger buying process, because we're trying to minimize the time wasted. Because I think we all know as strong agents how much buyers can take up 3 to 6 months and then walk off or not have the steps in place that you needed. It is the most defeating thing in the world. It's like sending them out to pasture. So I guess my advice would be the pre-qualification. I think everything always comes back to that. Those conversations you're having before you go to market, what's expected, setting those expectations, because if you don't know them and you're new, you better learn them, because having those difficult conversations is the hardest thing as a new agent. I remember having this, my dad used to make me have to do the calls of a price reduction, and I would be sweating, and I would just hate it. It's the worst thing in the world to call and get a price reduction. And that's what makes it, I do everything to avoid that now, right? I prep that. It's like, okay, we're probably going to need it. So the prep in that is so important. And then also with the buyers, just signing up anyone and running up the gate with them. It's not like that anymore. There's so many things you have to take into consideration, especially with even getting the financing. Is it pre-qualified? Is it real? Is that going to stick? And going into the offer process, because you could be super savvy with buyers right now, but also if there's a really good deal, it's probably the same in your market. You're going to go to multiples if it's a really good deal, and you got to be prepared to have those conversations, or you're going to go through the whole thing again, putting all these offers in and not winning any of them.
Where are you kind of drawing the line that, yeah, we can move forward, or no, this isn't going to work. I'm not the agent for you. And even kind of conveying that with your team. Like what questions, like you said, the qualification things, what are you trying to pull out of buyers and sellers right now that they need to say yes to these things, or it's got to be a hard no?
Well, I think we know I'm about $2,000 as soon as I sign that contract with any listing. I already know that's going out the window. And then it just goes up from there. And that involves my video marketing, my ads, and transactions, everything to get it to that point. So I need to know that this house is going to sell, because we might list 10 homes a month. There's 20,000 out there that I need to make sure we're getting back. So knowing your numbers, and actually having a goal plan in your head of what this is worth to you as well. So I guess on the listing side of things, I need to know that we're going to actually get this property moved. And if we're not going to move, we have a long-term relationship that we're going to be working with together. And ultimately, I think everything comes down to right now is price and how the home is prepped. So when do I walk away? When we're not aligned on price. Like if we're 75,000 or even 25,000 out on pricing, depending on the price point that we're in. And there's just no budging and moving on that. And, I'm stuck in where I'm at, and they're stuck there. We're not meeting in the middle, not even in a little bit. Why am I going to go to market? Why does someone want to work with me when we're not aligned? It's a team effort at the end of the day. And I tell my clients that all the time, like, this is a team. Like, you're not wrong, and I'm not wrong, and I'm not right, and you're not right. But here's what we're seeing. This is what makes sense. And this is where I think it needs to be. And let me live my lane of being the professional where I need to be, so I can advise them accordingly.
Yeah.
That's what
I mean, there's no 100% slam dunk. This thing's going to buy, sell. It's just, the highest probability, right? We're giving ourselves the highest probability. And I think that's why we want to have great processes, because great processes, great systems give us a higher probability of success. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it is the qualification side of things. And we used to always joke, and it really wasn't a joke because it was so true. The one question you don't ask is the question you're going to get hit with, right? It's the thing that you're going to get hit. It could be the 2x4 that, makes the deal fall apart if you don't do all of the homework and the due diligence on the front end and the front side of things. And it's getting back to, really having a set process and being able to go through that. And I know, even for you, right? Even, you do so much marketing and stuff and such a great job that people just reach out to you and it's like, hey, Georgia, come, we're ready to sell, right? It's you still get into competing situations, but fewer. Even if you are in a competing situation, they're already kind of leaning towards you just with your marketing and your branding. And if you don't follow the process, even to that point where you feel it's a slam dunk, it's gonna be disaster. It really is going to be disaster for us. Moving into this climate, this kind of market.
And to touch on that too, because the one thing with following the process is everyone will say something. Okay, I have a big example person. So I was at a house last week. I'm going to meet with them this week. And they said, I only want to buy this property if, we get over 1.3 million for our house. I'm looking at them. I already know it's not worth 1.3, but a lot of people will go, we're never going to get 1.3. It's never going to happen. But I want to follow my process, because once I walk them through the comparables, once I educate them on what I'm seeing and show them where I'm coming from, that number can change just like that. And I think we can all relate to a lot of situations like that, but follow the process, because you can lose a lot of gold. Because if you don't do it that way, you're going to see someone else's sign up on that front lawn, maybe for the price they originally wanted, but they might do that price drop really quickly and it might sell. And they maybe did that process that they needed to do through it. So always follow every step that you take, and don't write anything off until you feel you're so far in the process that this just isn't working or making sense. I don't know. Everyone in the world last week said their house was 1.3 to me. I don't know. There's something in the water. I'm like, okay, we have some work to do. And it's a lot of homework, right?
Yeah.
So much homework to educate them on that pricing. But I truly.
But yet, if you say yes and you don't do that work on the front end, it's 2 to 3 to 4 times as much work down the road, and you maybe don't even get compensated for all of that time in that work. Being able to do that,
probably don't.
Yeah.
That's exactly that. And that's, again, just working smarter. And every time that I've walked away from a deal, we just didn't have, our minds just didn't meet on a number that didn't make sense. It always comes back, even with a referral. I literally lost out from a multiple listing opportunity. There was 5 agents. I don't know why they ended up going with another agent. I think it was 5 people involved, but the one guy that asked me to do it already gave me a referral, and I didn't even get the one to represent his family. And it's hilarious how that all works, because he saw my process and he loved that. It's amazing.
And I think to that process, and I think where the climate is, there has to be real motivation there. And if they're coming in at 1.3, they see the numbers, they're still fighting you a little bit. I know for us, our default in tougher markets, right, where things sit a little bit longer, it was real motivation. If they, even with supporting the data's out there, everything, they still weren't quite as realistic to where you wanted to position it, but they were still a little aggressive. And still having that conversation, we're going to have to get into line what the market tells us a week, 2 weeks in. If there was real motivation there. And I think that's where you have to really dig in the qualification side of things to really uncover what is their real goal, and are they moving away from pain? That I think is so important for especially agents right now, or even in tough climates and tough markets as a business owner. It's you and I've talked about this, like, you don't want to be a vitamin company, you want to be a painkiller. And because we all know how important vitamins are. However, when you ain't got no money, you ain't buying no vitamins. And so you've got to really look and see. And I really believe in the market. I mean, for you in, in Canada, us even here in the States, like if there's not real motivation and they're trying to move away from pain and they have to do something, I just do not believe it's worth your time to waste unless you create the condition to where they're going to compensate everything if it doesn't sell, right? Your 2000, like you said, example, 2000 marketing expense, that's low end. Like, listen, I'll take this thing. If we're not going to get realistic on price, I can help you. However, at the end of this agreement, if it doesn't sell, you're on the hook to reimburse for that. I think being able to protect and do some things like that is really, really important. And most people don't want to have that conversation. They won't ask. So listen, just don't even take the property, move on and maybe put yourself in a position to be number 2 or number 3 when they really do have to make a move.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because it's like, you can put up anything. I love that. And it's like, okay, I know you guys are out to lunch, but you still want to try. Let's do this. If it doesn't sell within 6 months, my marketing expenses are given back, but I will give it all. And I do that a lot. I just did that twice last week with staging. Staging is such a tough thing around here. Like, it's about $4,500 to $5,000 per listing for staging, like done right, $3,500 depending on the size of the home. That on top of my marketing expenses, it just doesn't make sense for me at the end of the day to include it. A lot of different companies are including it. That being said, I don't know the quality of the staging or whatever they're doing, but what I've done lately is, I say, okay, I'll pay for staging. But that comes out of, on closing, you pay me back that on top of my commission fee. And the home doesn't sell, then you guys pay me back my staging. And honestly, it works really, really well in a lot of situations, because a lot of people are very strapped when they're selling. They're trying to fix up a lot of different things. Then on top of that, another $5,000, they're worried some, but divorces, like one won't pay, one will pay. It takes the stress away from that, but it also solidifies you the listing, which sounds really bad, but at the same time, you're like, I'm committing to you, not only this and that, but now you're in the long haul with them. They don't want to pay you back to switch agents. And then they kind of become a little bit easier to work with. It's kind of this really weird phenomenon.
You get, just all the concessions on the negotiating side of things. And I think that's the important, the important aspect, one of the key skills to develop as an agent that maybe you didn't have to sharpen as much being licensed since 20, being able to have that and understand, negotiation at, just even a fundamental level to be able to have that. And yeah, it really is key with that. You said with the staging, and I think this is really important. You can also look for, and if you can find a great staging company, but they may be in a situation as well to where they're not able to do this. Our stager when we were in Dallas with the brokerage in Frisco, Jana Olselton, Jana's amazing, and she modeled my home, and she would when she would go in. So we offered kind of 2 services. One of the staging services that we offered was what we called a 2-hour touch-up. And that sent two of their certified stagers in, and they used what was ever in the house, and they just got it picture worthy, picture ready. And so that was just part of, you hire us, that's what's going to happen. Now, if you really need full on staging, Jana's going to come in, her team's going to come in, they will do it, but they're going to tie it to the back end. When it closes, they're going to get paid. And she would do that, but now it would be a premium versus if they want to pay for it up front, they got it at a discount. So you can kind of navigate kind of the situation you shared, or you have a great stager that has, that capability. And I don't know how rare those type of stagers are out there to be able to find that will do that. But hey, maybe they will, just part of their business strategy to continue to grow. Yeah,
that's I never even had the stagers. The stagers fronting the cost for that, but I mean, why not, right? And especially for the newer agents, it's a lot of cash to have floating out there, not coming back right away. That's a really great option, and especially have those open conversations. We do the consultation we pay for, but the 2-hour touch-up's really great. Actually having them go in and I would love to discuss what that would cost with some of the stagers in my area, just to have that because I know what I've sent people in and paid for them to do what fluffing pillows and changing bed sheets and just rearranging can truly do for a property. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it's magical. And
It is.
and you've got your, you got your, photography, videographer, everybody coming in right on top of them. So it's just back to part of the process, being able to really lay that out. So you look at kind of your expertise and something that, like I said, you're world class at. Why real estate? Like for you, what was the passion, the desire to even come into real estate?
Yeah, it's if anyone knows me, it's my dad. When I was in high school, I wanted to go to school for art, but I think that's where I love the creativity of the side of real estate that I'm able to have, and that's where I find my passion in that. But no, I hated real estate. I never wanted to do it. I was forced into it, and I really didn't like it for the first 3 to 5 years. I mean, I was 19. None of my friends could afford homes. They're just being able to afford them now, actually. And and my dad kind of showed me, taught me real estate as a back burner job. He always had another career, so it was something you did on the side. I never really took it that seriously. But early on in my stages, I learned how to renovate homes and flip homes, which absolutely set me up for my career now, because I am educated, that I have flipped the homes. I've laid my own hardwood. I've painted walls. I've done all that, which honestly, anyone going into this really young that really wants to take on that, I mean, I'm not saying yes or no, but it is a great way for you to be able to educate your buyers going into the next couple of years, is get your hands dirty, buy a couple flips, and be in their shoes. And do it when you're really broke, because you can get really crafty and it's amazing. So sorry, that was my motivation to get in, came later and way years later, while I was already in it. And I just decided to take it seriously. And it wasn't because it was because I had to. I had no money coming in. I literally had just bought a house, and I realized, oh my goodness, I make way more money selling homes than I do flipping them, because it takes way more time for that return. And I decided to pick up my phone and do everything I could to make sure I mustered up enough business to, get by that year. And by having a right coach in place, teaching me how to grow my business like an actual business, not using it as a side burner job.
Yeah.
Overnight, I was able to have the best year I ever had in real estate, year after year after year, even in a downward market. And I actually put all of that on coaches for teaching me the right way to do it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It really is. And it's a collapse time type of moment too. And the faster that you can get into your lane, what you're the best in the world at, then you can start to build the business and start to build the pieces and the things around you. And it really is. And I love what you said about having that experience. I was just thinking through, we had to do everything just because of our average sales price was so low that, I mean, we had to do everything just to even survive. And so that meant, the rehab, the flipping of the homes, buying and holding of homes, developments. We did, in city, rural developments. I mean, completely opposite, dealing with, polar opposite, policies and politics and regulations and new construction and, just really doing it all because we had to, but it gave such an amazing perspective when now you're talking to a different type of clientele. You're a little more educated and understanding the process and understanding kind of what they're going through. And so, yeah, I absolutely love that. And as you were saying that, I was laughing because I was thinking of, said you got into when you're 19, 20. I mean, it's just kind of, Leanne got in later in life, but she was a homeowner at 19, right? And multiple homes by the time she was in her mid 20s. And so being able to have that experience, and then it carries over into this industry to where you're really able to put yourself into their shoes. And that's what really also helps being world-class at marketing, is when you can put yourself into the other person's shoes.
And it helps you be world-class selling it. You know how many homes I've talked my clients out of and moved them into different ones because I knew this was the best choice for them. They really wanted the brand new kitchen. They wanted the bathroom, but they're newlyweds. They had no money. They just wanted to go max budget. And, helping them build that sweat equity and being that person in their ear that when you're able to speak that freely and you've been in their shoes or whatever it is, the confidence just comes out. And anytime anyone wants to work with you, they just immediately trust you, and your whole transaction is so incredible from the A to Z because the trust is there.
Yeah.
But if you're a realtor right now and you don't have any experience flipping or renovating, just be so present for the home inspections and have a huge list of roster of people that you can pull on. Everyone's got a flooring guy, everyone's got like a tiler, and just be more present when they're talking about these things. You can be educated so quickly, and then bring that to your meetings and use that as your resource list of when you're dealing with buyers. Our seller guide that we have, honestly, the back of our book, it is incredible how much we have 5 pages in there of all our preferred partners that we use. And every time I go to a listing appointment, and it's going to be in our buyer guides as well, it's like the people in that book, they know when they call from the Tusch Real Estate Group, they're going to show up, they're going to be there on time, they're going to give them the best deal possible. And it's really important, I think, as a buying agent and a selling agent, to make sure you have a strong list of preferred partners. Especially if you're working the lower end, just like John, when you were saying, like you had to be resourceful for all these things that needed to get done prior to the listing of it, or working with buyers to get quotes on things to get the deal done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And, I think when we had this dialed in, the best that we ever had it dialed in, we took the approach, especially, talking about the preferred vendors, we took the approach of, adding so much more value to them that in exchange of whatever we were wanting from them, it was an irresistible offer, right? And it was just pouring into them. But we took the approach of pouring into them into their business and helping them navigate and grow their business. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter if it was, mortgage company. It didn't matter if it was the title company. It didn't matter if it was the locksmith company. Like, we treated them all absolutely the same. Now, was the compensation or whatever the arrangement in return, was it different? Of course. I mean, the locksmith guy ain't making much money. And so you don't want to try to, take them for everything that they possibly have in that, in that relationship. But there was a lot of bartering. I remember, I'll never forget, this was one of the best lessons for me when it was, having those relationships. And, we had the old traditional vendor program. This is this tier, this tier, this tier. You can be, a preferred vendor at this price per month, this price per month, or this price per month. And I'll never forget our pest guy comes in, and he would always bring us cash. It was the funniest shit. He would always bring us cash in a white envelope. And I'll never forget, he walked in one day, he said, "What's up, boys?" We said, "What's going on, Mac?" And he said, "Listen, I ain't bringing you no more money ever again." We said, "Okay." He said, "But here's what I will do." And, he took care of our remodels. He took care of our personal home. I was like, "Mac, I got spiders." He's like, "Bro, I'll be over there this afternoon." Now, so like, that's, I think, just as a business owner, and especially in real estate, and like you said, you got to have those preferred vendors. There's just creative ways to make it a win-win relationship. And that goes back to the fundamentals of win-win doesn't mean it's 50-50. And what it does is mean, he's getting value, we're getting value. And that's a great relationship. And it's one of the things, I mean, you and I've talked about it, but it's one of the things that just infuriates me with real estate agents that have figured out customer acquisition, and they know how to acquire the client. And then they just give the client to somebody else that makes money off of it, and they didn't pay for that opportunity. It just infuriates me. Exactly. And it's like, listen, get something in return, make it a win-win relationship, because right now that person is just taking advantage of you. It is not a fair relationship. So make it a really good win-win relationship, and something that you can build on, and something that you feel confident when you, like you said, to that point, like, I genuinely, they're the best. Like, if you're a fool if you don't use this company. And I think when you have a really good trade-off, then you feel good about that relationship.
Such a good reminder. I think we all can push those relationships further than what we have. Like, I just got a quote from my pool guy this morning for an early spring opening. I'm like, I don't even cover my pool. So first time I'm like, I know I've been paying the other rate, but I'm like, I don't even have a cover. Can I get like a discount? Cause you're never putting a cover on it. He's like, oh yeah. But I'm like, wait, you're in my seller guide. I should be getting free pool service potentially because how many people I give you, but it's just because I haven't had a conversation like that. And it's not like I'm asking for something free, but it would incentivize me to actually push his name more. So what a great
that goes back to knowing your numbers, right? And then goes back to being able to track. And you're like, listen, how many people have we sent to you in the last 12 months? What is your average clientele? What's the average transaction value for every client that you have? So great. So do you feel that this is a fair relationship? And most of the time when you start talking through it, and most people just aren't problem aware. They're not aware. And when you start to have that conversation with them, I'm like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Let's make a better relationship. Let's make a better deal. Cool. I would love that. I don't want to stop using you, but I just want to make it a relationship where I don't build resentment because I'm sending you and then you're still doing that in return. And it's nothing personal, right? It's just business. And I think it's just having great business relationships to where, it's a win for both people.
Funny. We fight so hard to learn how to win every commission battle, but to have a conversation with somebody that you're handing off free business to is so daunting. Yeah. It's hilarious.
And it's just business and they get it. Like it's like, sure, this is dumb. But you also got to remember, they're dealing with their own shit. They're dealing with their own business. They're dealing with their own fires. They're dealing with their own clientele. They're dealing with their own employees. They're dealing with so much stuff that if you don't put it in front of them and have the conversation, just because the conversation needs to be had, like we talk ourselves up to it. We build up to it too much. So it's super important, especially right now when business is really tough. You got to really lean in on those other relationships to make sure we got other revenue coming in, or we're not paying too much out. It's super important.
No, great reminder, actually. And just touching in on your preferred partners. I don't remember last time I've called every single one of them just to see how they're doing,
I think, we used to, this one I was kind of alluding to when we really had this dialed in. I think we were mid 22, 23 preferred vendor program. And every time we learned something, we gave it back to them. So this was kind of in the days when we were going really deep down the rabbit hole with Jay Abraham, and we flew out to LA. We came back, we made 23 copies of everything that we got and we learned, and we sat down for a half a day. We invited everybody in, we paid for lunch. We gave it to them. We talked to them about it, how it's helping grow our business. We hope it helps you grow your business. And so that's what I mean. It's just not a monetary exchange, but how can what we're learning that's working for us, how can we pour back into you? And that just makes a stronger community. And that's really what anchored us in our local market. When we were still in Lawton, we were able to really anchor in, and we had great business relationships throughout the whole community. And it served us really, really well. And most of the power of relationships. Yeah. Especially when the climate is tough like it is right now, really being able to lean in on those relationships are key.
I love that idea. I'm going to steal that. Just honestly, just having all your preferred partners in one room alone would be incredible for networking, and for their own businesses as well.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of create, everybody kind of knows the B&I groups and, exchange referrals, but it was more about it's not exchanging referral. We're exchanging business because you're preferred. You're the only one in this room. But we want to be better. Here, our belief was, Georgia, this was what our belief was, is because it was our responsibility at the end of the day to control the entire experience, because we tied that experience to lifetime value. And when we look at, the true lifetime value of working with a buyer or a seller, say a buyer comes in and let's, hey, I'm going to be in this game for the next 20 years. Okay. Well, how many referrals, how many people is that one person going to know that's going to buy or sell in the next 20 years? How many times are they going to buy or sell in the next 20 years? They're going to, if they have kids, are their kids going to buy and sell? So there's just so much value in that one transaction. But we knew we were the center linchpin of the entire experience. And if I send you the pool guy that just destroys your pool, does a shitty job, that just destroys the experience, who does that look bad on?
Yeah.
looks bad on you as the agent. So we felt compelled to make them better, to make them the best that they could be in their industry. That way, when we sent somebody that we were thinking long-term, thinking lifetime value, that they were going to have a world-class experience with them. And so that looked, shine the light back on us in our favor as well. It's one of the biggest missed opportunities that I see so many agents miss. Even these massive mega teams, they still miss that as well. There's so many ways to increase lifetime value by having a great dynamic affiliate network that you're pouring into as much as you can.
Yeah, it's just like one more thing on top of all the things to take care of. The beast to even decide to, but it's not. Like, if you just lay it out, that's the best reminder I've gotten today, is to really sharpen my pencil on my paper. I don't have any type of, I know you used to do tiers, right? So, yeah. But mine's just good faith. Like, maybe one day all my painters will paint my house.
I mean, and that's not bad, right? I mean, you're making, deposits into there, but sometimes, it's okay to make a withdrawal, especially if you've made a lot of deposits. It's okay to go ask for a withdrawal. Yeah. And so, don't go try to make a withdrawal too quick.
No, preferably. I just love the idea of making them more world-class for your clients, because I think that's the biggest fear, is because that can ruin that entire transaction for life. It's like, I used Georgia's painter, they were horrible, right? And
and when we sold, that was what also made part of the brand more valuable. When we sold the company in Lawton, those relationships continued to carry over and served for them, on into the future, because the clientele, the database, the past clients, they would come back to the brand because the brand was, so well connected and focused on the experience and lifetime value. It really is super important to take into consideration, especially if you're going to be in the game for a while. Now, I mean, if you're doing this part-time, like you were before, like your dad was before, maybe not so much, maybe some different relationships that kind of take care of you, but really thinking lifetime value, thinking long-term, you've got to think of all the touch points that they're going to have a possible derailment of an experience, because it's going to come back to you. It's not going to be, they're not going to use that. They're going to talk bad about that particular vendor, that particular, trade. However, they're not going to look at you the same. And because it's like, man, that jackass referred that person to me. I can't believe they did that to me. Why would they do that? And so it's super important to take that into consideration.
What did I do yesterday? We sent over our wall tech guy, because there was a little bit of water in the basement, got that fixed up. The everything's wet and gross right now. So we sent over Gary Faulkner to put a load of gravel in the laneway. And you don't even think about how many people you call in a pinch when things need to get done really, really quickly. And
it's so important. Georgia, what are you, as kind of wrapping up here, for you, definitely kind of positioned and storytelling and marketing, kind of climate conditions. I mean, where do you see kind of, the evolution into the future? Greg and I were talking this morning, and I've had a few conversations over the last couple of weeks, and, a lot of the, I don't know, talking heads, but a lot of the people kind of some perspective and some insight. I mean, it's going to be tough for the next 12, 18 months. What are you kind of seeing to almost, how do we continue to kind of put a moat around our business and kind of protect our business and our business model as much as we can, navigating the next 12, 18 months?
What I've been fully focused on is not letting anything fall to the cracks business wise right now, because, it's so hard right now to get the people that are ready to buy and sell. The opportunities are coming, but I want to make sure that we crush every single opportunity. So I'm dialing in our selling process and our buying process. And that goes back to the pre-qualification process that we were talking about earlier, which I know you used to have an incredible one as well. So my focus right now, I think everyone's always is on systems and processes, but my listing process, to know that every time I'm going in there, I'm walking out of there with the listing. And if it's not, it comes down to commission and it comes down to price. And I feel like the commission is always a negotiation, because maybe it wasn't articulated the value the best. So articulating the value we bring as a brand to your company, to your property. And then also I think that will slash out anything to do with that conversation if it's presented right, just the way that you've taught me as well. And then it comes down to pricing. So, and that should be articulated in the best way. And I think that can be a problem that can get solved really quickly if it's just brought to the light and it's talked about in depth and educated the right way. If not, then maybe they are just out to lunch. That's a time saver. And then the same with the buying process. Really, I have lived by the edge of my seat with the buying process. I really have never had a solid buying process. But going into more competitive times, securing those buyers, getting them under contract, number one, so they're not shopping around and they're not just calling any realtor to actually just open up a door, and then building out that process so you can get deals to the table faster. A lot of the time, those questions and those answers just weren't done in the pre-qualification process, and that slows down deals. It loses offers, and it makes the whole time stretch out longer, and it can get exhausting, and people can get tired and they can fall off. So I would say for me, the next 12 to 24 months, and I am looking into really knowing my numbers. As much as I pretend I think I know my numbers, I don't. I'm the worst agent for that because I don't like numbers. So dialing in on the numbers, really learning what my cost is to bring on a listing, cost of a buyer. Honestly, and if there is trimmed fat to be done there, but I don't believe in letting off the gas right now when it comes to building up the brand, picking up talent maybe with other agents right now, and not letting off the gas with content and making sure my exposure is growing, because it's fairly easy to cut that cost right off the top, which is your marketing. I think that's probably the first thing that people do go to cut because it is more expensive. But I think it's probably the last thing you want to do going into the next 12 to 24 months, because it's where you can really build some really great brand awareness.
Yeah, spot on. Georgia, you're amazing. I appreciate you carving out the time, jumping in here and, chopping it up and adding a ton of value as always.
Thank you for having me.
You're awesome. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you.